Aaron Swisher is trying to do something that nobody's been able to do for the past 20 years, and that is to unseat the incumbent Republican representative from Idaho's 2nd Congressional District. Swisher is a Democrat. He is challenging Mike Simpson this year. I want to point out he is our guest in this half hour of the program. We're at 35 on Magic Valley this morning on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. And our guest is not only just running for office, but he has a background in economics. And during one of the debates on this issue, I believe this subject came up in the past and just recent past. And I think that his view is we probably have too many doctors and lawyers in Washington. I'm paraphrasing, not necessarily quoting him. But first of all, Mr. Swisher, welcome to our program.
Thank you very much, Bill.
We were just having a bit of a conversation off air about your economics background, and you were kind of pointing out that you have two schools of thought that have been dominant in Washington for about 8 decades, and you feel that we have to have a new approach in government, and you'd like to be that voice.
Yes, absolutely. There are two basic approaches: one that the Democrats take, and one that the Republicans take. And on just an economic, philosophical level, both of those approaches are wrong. And so I think if you bring a new approach, a new understanding of macroeconomics, you can actually kind of bridge that divide and put something in place that will work and create an economy that's not reliant on the federal government, but is actually the engine and the foundation for doing better things in our society.
We should point out with the Keynesian view, which has, I think, been the most dominant model in the West since the Great Depression,
Mm-hmm.
and that is that you prime the pump. Even among Republicans, many of them have at least adopted some of that, and you feel that may not necessarily be the best approach then going forward.
Yeah. So that Keynesian approach suggests that the government does two things. First, print money and lower the interest rates by doing that. And the second thing is run a government or a budget deficit, having the government spend money that it doesn't have. Neither of those is sustainable, and actually printing money, causes us more problems down the road. It might fix things in the short term, but further down the road, it gives us a lot of problems. And so we've got to get away from that approach.
When you decided to do this, I would imagine you don't just lightly say, "Hey, I'm going to run for the 2nd Congressional District in Idaho." What was the catalyst that really got you interested in the job?
Well, to be honest, I've been looking at this race for about 6 years. So the fact that my hat is just now in the ring, it tells you something about that. And obviously, you've realized it's not an easy decision. Once I wrote my first book, which kind of explained why the country goes into recessions, particularly major recessions, and put forward a full, comprehensive, detailed economic plan to get us out of that, strengthen the economy, and balance the budget, I started looking around and realized there was nobody in Washington on either side of the aisle who had a plan that was as good as my plan. Or if they did have a plan, they certainly weren't putting it out in public. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. The people who run for office are everyday people. They're just human beings. I might as well give this a go. I'm not really in a position. A lot of folks that run for office are very well-to-do. I'm not like that. So there was obviously a financial component in me deciding to run, but my family and I got to the point where we felt like we could pull it off. It hasn't been easy for us financially, but we're making it. And, hopefully we'll be able to change the country and make things better for our son and the next generation.
I have a lot of people who call the radio program and they vent about Mr. Simpson on air with me. And of course, these are often Republicans who feel that he's not quite up to what their view of a Republican should be. I also, though, am well aware that callers to a radio station do not necessarily represent all attitudes, obviously, in public. And I realize that a lot of people have challenged him and they've come up short. So there's got to be something that works for him. And it seems to me that this is a little bit like a David taking on Goliath in this situation.
Absolutely. It is absolutely like that. I feel like Mr. Simpson does a few things very well, particularly in the political realm. He's very good at straddling issues to where people listen to him and don't find a lot to disagree with. And he's very good at avoiding positions. If you ask him a question, he'll tell you all about the issue. He'll give you all of your options for fixing the issue, but then he won't take a position as to what he would like to see done to fix that problem. And he keeps himself out of trouble because of that. But like you said, I do think there are people who just stand back and give it the 30,000-foot view and say, look, when this man came to office, we had a balanced budget. We only had $5.5 trillion of national debt. Not that that's good, but we now have $21.5 trillion. That's 800 billion for every year he's been in office. He's got to be doing some things wrong, and I think they would like to see that fixed.
I think that probably a lot of people out there who are tuning in today, first question they have is, who is Aaron Swisher? Because you were not obviously a household name in the district nor in the state of Idaho for most people. What is the background? How do you fill that in for them in a very quick period of time?
Yeah. I was actually born and raised in West Virginia. My father was a mailman, and so I come from coal country. I moved out to Boise in the early 90s. I went to Boise State. I wrestled there for the university for 5 years. I came away with degrees in economics and finance. And work-wise, I've done everything from construction. I was a material cutter in a garment factory as a young man. I've done some short-haul trucking. I've done corporate finance and investments. So I've got a full gamut of life experiences to draw from.
Running in this district, and I think that in Idaho, President Trump perhaps was not necessarily as popular as he was in some other states, because I remember primary day here well in 2016. On the other hand, I think that he has become, people, Republicans anyway, have become at least bigger fans than they were, let's say, primary day 2 years ago. But I'm going to guess that, I saw your criticism of his trade policy. You're not necessarily a big fan of the President of the United States.
Anytime someone new is elected, whether I agree with their, the election results or not, I try to find the positives and where I would be able to work with that person and the hopes that I have, for that person. And when Trump came in, there were some subjects he was bringing up that I thought were very important to be brought to the table. Him and Bernie Sanders both talked about the damage that our trade policies have done to the American worker, and I wholeheartedly agree with that position. Now, when it comes to specifics and how he's doing it, that's a little problematic for me. The trade wars are very harmful for our ag industry, our dairy companies, things of that sort, our technology, our high-tech computer chip makers. So I think we can do this. We just have to have the right approach to getting it done. Mike Simpson is a free trader. And then you've got people in Washington who you would call protectionists. I am not really either. I think it depends on the country that you're dealing with. And let me give you an example. If you're talking about Canada, their wage rates are very similar to our wage rates. Their regulatory structure is very similar to ours. They protect intellectual property, as do we. So that's a fairly level playing field. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close. In a situation like that, you can have freer trade because it's a fair playing field. You don't have that when you're talking about the U.S. and Mexico or the U.S. and China or India. Wage rates are much different. Some of those countries don't protect intellectual property or worker rights. They don't have a regulatory system in place that is similar to ours. And so you have to have something there that makes the trade fairer for American workers. And really the best thing to do there is a tariff. They don't have to be huge tariffs. I'm not talking 30, 40, 50%, but something in the range of like 4 or 5% up to 15 to maybe 20% at most, should do the job. But you've got to get that in place. you really need to do it through Congress. You've got to have a system where, industries aren't getting in there and getting special deals for their products or their services. And if you do that right, you can have trade with other nations, benefit from that trade, but still protect American jobs.
We're speaking with Aaron Swisher. He's the Democrat challenging Mike Simpson in the 2nd Congressional District in Idaho this year. We're at 37. It's 9:16 on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com with Bill Colley. A big story out of Washington yesterday was the president saying that he wants to bring an end to, and this obviously is perhaps beyond economics, but birthright citizenship. Is the president on the wrong footing here, or is he getting at something that we really need to address?
Well, I think it's something that we need to address. But this is a constitutional amendment that allows birthright citizenship. So changing that is not going to be a simple, easy process, nor should it be. If we're going to do this, we really need to discuss it and think long and hard about it. In my mind, the real problem is border security and making sure we secure the border so that you don't have people just coming into the country to have a child and then either leaving or, being here in an undocumented fashion. I don't have any problem with children who are born here being American citizens, but, in an ideal situation, their parents would be, legal or documented, whether it's with a green card or citizenship or working their way to citizenship, that type of thing.
When you mentioned border security, are you in favor of a wall?
I'm not. I think a wall across the entire southern border would be a waste of money. In fact, I know there are areas where it would be a waste of money. Now, there may be some areas where a wall helps. So you may look at that on a case-by-case basis for certain areas. But I think whether you have a wall or not, you're going to need boots on the ground. You're going to need surveillance. Drones, I think, give us a great opportunity to keep an eye on the border, without a lot of boots on the ground. So I think we've got the technology to protect the border and do it in a way that is more cost-effective than building a wall. In places where they have built a wall, they're still having problems. So it's not a one-shot solution where you put up a wall and the problem's fixed. So the key here is finding the most effective, efficient way, cheapest way for taxpayers to get that done.
We got about 30 seconds before the break, and then we'll pick this up afterward. But quickly, for folks who are tuning in today, if they'd like to know more about your campaign, what's your web presence?
We have a website at swisherforidaho.com.
And any Facebook or anything like that as well?
We're also on Facebook at Swisher for Idaho. And if people are interested in the first book, it's available on Amazon. It's called Resuscitating America.
We've got more coming up with candidate Aaron Swisher. He's the Democrat challenging Mike Simpson in the 2nd Congressional District in Idaho. It's 20 minutes after 9 o'clock. We're at 36 on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Magic Valley this morning with Bill Colley. Economist Aaron Swisher joining us this morning on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com on Magic Valley with Bill Colley, or Magic Valley this morning with Bill Colley. It's 37 at 9:22. And we call him economist. Why is he on the air with us? Well, we're not necessarily having wholly economic discussions today. He's on the air with us because we're 6 days away from Election Day, and he is challenging Mike Simpson. Swisher is the Democrat, and he would like to unseat the 20-year veteran of the House of Representatives. Wanted to mention the candidate has a busy schedule this morning, and he has an appointment at 10 o'clock. But within the next few minutes, I asked him if he could give us an elevated elevator speech or an extended elevator speech. People know the reference, I think, but we've got a bit more time than that. If you could, tell people exactly why you're doing this, why you want to do this, and maybe what your vision would be if you could be the guy getting under the hood and doing the tinkering and fixing this government. How do you hit the ground running? I've done all the metaphors, mixed metaphors. Now go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a husband and a father. I've got a 2.5-year-old son and a second child on the way. I want to make sure when they grow up, they have an economy that is fair and rewards them for the work that they put forward. If that's a lot of effort, a lot of reward, not much effort, not much reward, but it's got to be fair. I want them to have an environment that is clean, where they have clean air, clean water, and I don't want to be saddling my son and his generation with trillions of dollars of national debt. So the big three issues for me are a fair economy, clean environment, and getting rid of our debt and deficit problem. I bring an approach to Washington that will allow me to reach across the aisle, criticize both sides when they need it, work with both sides as necessary to get us an economy that is fair, a budget that's balanced, and where we're protecting the environment and doing regulation in an efficient manner, typically through the tax system, not through like some large bureaucracy with a bunch of regulation. It's a new approach to economics, and I think that's the key. I'm not coming in as a Democrat saying the Democrat way is better and the Republican way is bad. I'm coming at this from a new angle where I can sit down with both sides, give them credit for the things they've done right, criticize them for the things they've done wrong, and work with both sides to get something done in Washington.
I read a couple of weeks ago a story, and at first I was a little ticked off because I thought Mitch McConnell supposedly had said that Republicans were looking to cut Social Security benefits, and then the more I learned about it, the next few days, what he was saying is it's almost impossible to get any reform done on programs, and these are going to be true budget busters in years to come, because he said we've got split government and nobody really wants to make the hard decisions, and I think his reference to split government as an expectation that the House is going to flip to the Democrats, obviously. And I heard that and I thought, this is the real issue for this country is in another 15 years, just three programs could entirely eat up the budget. So do we have to ask people to pay more in taxes, or are we going to have to tell people, sorry, it's no longer available?
Yeah, yeah. I am of the approach, and I said this in the book. If you want to balance the budget, you really have four options. You can cut Medicare and Medicaid. You can raise taxes, you can cut defense spending, or you can do a combination of those. And really the combination is the best way to go, because if you try and do it with any of those things individually, you're going to destroy, our healthcare system and our economy. You're going to destroy the military. If you raise taxes that much, you're going to destroy the economy and our incentives. So you really need a combination of things. And that's where my expertise really comes into play. I know places where we can raise taxes and actually improve the economy instead of destroying it. But you've got to understand economics in order to do that. And that's the expertise that I bring to the table. We do have to reduce our Medicare and Medicaid expenditures. In my mind, we go to a single-payer system and help bend that cost curve down. We have to reform Social Security. I think you do that separate from the whole budget situation. That was the Ronald Reagan approach, and that's kind of the way I look at it. You look at that system as a separate system from the rest of the budget. We need to make our military expenditures more efficient. I put that in the book as well. And like I said, I think I can raise revenue in ways that aren't going to hurt the economy.
But when you reference single-payer system, we've only got about 90 seconds to go in bending the cost curve down. I remember the stories that I read about the creation of Medicaid and Medicare, that these were going to help control costs, and it clearly wasn't the case. And so,
Yeah.
it sounds great to look at it in theory, but it doesn't tend to work that way.
Yeah. Well, I think anytime you're going to do a partial fix, the way that Medicare and Medicaid did, you're not going to get that cost control. And you've got the same thing with the Affordable Care Act. It just wasn't comprehensive enough to control costs the way that they should be. And, the Republicans did a Medicare Part D expansion back in 2003.
Right.
They could have allowed Medicare to negotiate drug prices the way that all major insurers do. They forbid that in that bill, and now our kids are paying the cost of that.
Touche. Well, Aaron, before we let you go, one more time, just to let people know how to find you on the web and a little bit about where they can find the book.
Yes. Our website is at swisherforidaho.com, and the book it can be purchased on Amazon. It's called Resuscitating America, an Independent Voter's Guide to Restoring the American Dream.
Great talking to you. I know you're going to be a busy man the next few days, and we'll let you get back on the road, and might be interesting. We might be able to talk to you again sometime soon.
That'd be great. I appreciate the opportunity, Bill.
Hey, thank you. Thank you much for the time. Aaron Swisher joining us this morning. He's the Democrat challenging Mike Simpson this year in the 2nd Congressional District in Idaho. We're at 9:30. Todd Starnes just ahead. It's 36 on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. You're listening to Magic Valley This Morning.